Hello friends, welcome to the fifth domain of CISA, and in this domain we will cover protection of information assets. And to start with, I would like to set up the context for this module, for this domain. First of all, my friends, domain 5 is the one which carries the highest weightage for your CISA exam, because you can expect around 27% of your total questions coming from this domain. And this domain, friends, is not only important for your exam, but also for your real life. Because what you will learn in this domain, you are going to use almost every day in your real life, either as an IAS auditor or in the IT operations space as well. So please understand the concepts of this domain very, very carefully. And then, friends, in this domain, you will also learn the importance of the acronym CIA, also called AIC, which stands for Confidentiality, Integrity, and Availability of Information Assets. Please remember, and I may have covered that in one of the previous videos, as far as ITGC is concerned, IT General Controls, CIA is the foundation for ITGC. Whatever you do, whether you are checking the backup process, whether you are checking the restoration process, whether you're looking at server settings, whether you are looking at firewall security, whether you are looking at user access management, segregation of duties, anything which you do in ITGC, you try to get comfort around confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. Yeah. So this is the foundation. And then in this domain, you also focus on the design, implementation, and monitoring of two things: logical access and the physical access controls. And I will cover that in next few minutes. So with that, let's jump into what we are going to cover in this particular video. So these are the 4 topics I will walk you through. Yeah. First one, as I said, CIA or AIC, whatever you call. This is the foundation stone. This is the building block of you as IAS auditor. Yeah. So whichever area of IT systems you are auditing, the focus is always on whether the company has defined controls in that particular process to ensure that the confidentiality of the information is maintained. Number 1. Number 2, whether the company has put in a process to ensure that the integrity of data is maintained. Integrity means no unauthorized access, no unauthorized changes. Okay. Third thing which you check is whether the company has put in process to ensure that the data is available as and when required for legitimate use. That is called availability. Yeah. And this is something which you focus more while auditing the backup management process, restoration testing, disaster recovery planning, and so on. Yeah. And we will cover this in detail in this module, in this domain. Yeah. Next important concept, guys, is auditing information security management framework. What does this mean, guys? It is about auditing the end-to-end process, that how the company or the client which you are auditing, how they have designed the end-to-end process. So when you are auditing the framework, guys, you don't necessarily go into the sample testing. You basically, primarily, you focus on the overall design. Whether from architecture perspective, is the information security framework appearing to be sufficient or not? That's something which you focus on. Yeah. And since this is primarily a design review, you focus on the written policies, whether they are comprehensive, whether they are covering all the key aspects. You focus on how well the training program is organized for the end users. Guys, please remember, and if you want to note, please note that the security of any organization is as good as the weakest link. I will repeat, the security of an organization is as good as the weakest link. And it has been proven, guys, over the years, over the decades, that more often than not, human beings are the weakest link. Okay? And hence, good quality training and awareness program becomes very, very important. Data ownership. This is another aspect which you are supposed to check as part of the overall framework, because many times the ownership of data is not defined, and because of this lack of ownership, who will put controls on the confidentiality of the data, on the completeness of the data, and the accuracy of data, that is not defined. And hence data ownership, the clarity on this is very important, and that's something which we need to check when we are auditing the framework. Next is data custodian, guys. This is where many times people get confused that who is data owner and who is data custodian. So guys, please remember, data custodian is generally the IT operations team. And why custodian? Because based on the approval given by data owners, okay, based on the approval given by data owners, data custodians provide access to the users. Okay, I will give you an example. If I am the owner, suppose I am the head of HR, and hence I am the owner of the, say, employee master. Yeah, because I am the head of HR. Now, say Mr. A, he wants to get access to the employee master. So what the IT operations team will do, they will ask that user to take my approval for access. Now, when I give the approval, IT operations team will look at that, yes, Rajiv has given the approval, and then they will give access to Mr. A. So in this scenario, what has happened? Mr. A is the end user. I am the data owner, and IT operations team is the custodian. So they are the ones who are responsible to allow access only to the people which has been approved by whom? Data owner. Yeah. And you as IS auditor, while studying the framework, while auditing the framework, you have to give comfort that data ownership has been clearly defined, and data custodians, they are clear on what are their roles, responsibilities, and the process. Okay. New IT users, as I said earlier, their security, their awareness and training has to be well defined. Sign off has to be taken that they are giving a declaration that they will comply with the end user accepted use of information system. They are giving declaration for that. Yeah, a documented authorization, which means whatever approvals data owner have given, they have to be documented and properly archived, because depending upon the country and the regulation, these records have to be maintained for X number of years. So they have to be documented and archived that way. Terminated employee access. So guys, this is something which is a risk, unmitigated risk in many organizations. And many times you get a question around this in your CISA exam. So what happens many times that the day a person has left the organization, IT access, access of that user in the network, access of that user in SAP, Oracle Financial, many times this access removal gets delayed. And hence there is a risk that someone, even that terminated means separated, that separated employee, he may access it from the internet, or someone else within the organization may use that person's ID to pass some unauthorized transactions. So this is always an area of concern, especially with the statutory auditors. So it is very important that the design of this control is reviewed. Yeah. With that, we move to the next topic, which is data privacy. So guys, you would have seen that more and more countries, they are now increasing their focus on the data privacy requirements. And many of you would have heard or would have read about GDPR requirements, which is now applicable to many companies across the globe. Yeah, but important point, guys, in CISA exam, you will not get a question around any particular regulation, because these regulations are different in different countries. So what is, there may be a specific requirement in US, some specific requirement in UK, Australia, India, and so on. And hence, you don't really need to worry about learning the data privacy requirements of different countries. That is not an ask in CISA exam. So rest assured, yeah. So in case of data privacy, guys, what is important, what an organization has to put in place are the policies and standards around how they will manage this entire, data privacy. And this private data, this should be collected, guys, in a very open and transparent manner. Yeah. So transparency is something which is now becoming a standard, now becoming a norm to earn the trust of the users, right? And then whosoever is collecting the data, whichever company, it is now an expectation from that company to ensure that this data is kept safe. And you would have seen there are few companies, whether some hotel chains, some airline companies, they have very recently, they have lost data due to hacking and all those different attempts which have happened. And this brings the bad name to the organization. And hence it is very important that all this PII, personally identifiable information, which your company has collected from the users, it is kept securely. Yeah. And there should not be any unauthorized access and no unauthorized changes allowed to that data. Yeah. Now, if those are the expectation from the companies, then every company is also supposed to do privacy impact analysis, also called PIA. Very important concept, guys. And what it involves a few steps. Step number one is pinpoint the nature of PII which that company is collecting, yeah? And in which business process. That is the first start, because if you don't know in which process, which type of PII is getting collected, how we will put a control. Yeah. So to ensure that you have universe, you have population of PII you are collecting under different processes. To have that population, to have that universe, you need this first step. Okay. Second step is document the collection, how you are using, and where you are disclosing, and how you are destroying that PII. You need to have a documented process for all these stages. Because if you don't document these steps, it will not give comfort to the regulators as well as to your customers or vendors about the seriousness which you have around this process. So to give that comfort, you need to have documented process. And then, guys, you have to ensure accountability for any privacy issue. So there has to be a named person who is the owner of this process in every organization. Because if there is no owner, then who will ensure, who will monitor that this process is working fine? So that's an important step under privacy impact analysis. Then we need to identify the legislative, regulatory, and the contractual requirements. Because once you get to know, okay, and as part of this business process, this is the PII we are collecting. Okay, very good. And you have also set up a person who is responsible to run that process. But you also need to understand that the country in which you're operating, what are the requirements, what you're supposed to do, and what you're not supposed to do as per the law. Because that becomes your bare minimum requirement. You can make your process stricter than that, but your process cannot be lenient as compared to the regulatory requirement. And hence, identification of these requirements is very important. Yeah. So these are some of the fundamental steps, guys, which we do in privacy impact analysis. This is an important concept from your exam perspective. Okay. With that, we move to the last concept of this video, which is audit considerations for privacy. So in the previous slide, what we discussed how management will do privacy impact analysis. Now, what is the role of IS auditor? Yeah. So some of the key considerations which you as IS auditor will have is, you will check whether the company is ensuring that they are taking appropriate consent prior to transferring the PII to other jurisdictions. Yeah, other jurisdictions mean other regions, other countries, and so on. Because as I said, now every country is coming up with different requirements, with different restrictions, that if you are collecting data, for example, of say UK citizens, then where all you can store the data and who all can access the data. Similarly, different countries are coming up with different requirements. Okay, so have we taken the consent of the users? Next is, as auditor, you will see whether the company, it has clearly provided the purpose to the to the user, that the purpose for which we are collecting PII. Yeah, and it has to be clearly communicated to the users. Next is, what process the company has put in place to ensure the sanctity of data. Yeah. Now, sanctity includes how we are ensuring that data is complete, how we are ensuring that the data is accurate and no unauthorized changes have happened, and how we are ensuring that data is being kept confidential, no hackers, no unauthorized access is happening to the data. So that's something which IS auditor has to check basically check the process, quality of process. Then accountability, and we saw in the previous slide that there has to be someone who is responsible and accountable to run the data privacy process. So we will check as IS auditors, we will check whether in reality also those roles and responsibilities clearly defined and someone has been appointed to play that role. Lastly, another important step which we as IS auditor check is, with all these great steps, with all these great actions being taken by the company, it is still possible that some breach may happen. Yeah, because you never know, someone may find some loophole in the entire process. So in case the breach happens, then has the company established a process for identifying that, okay, yes, today the breach has happened, and they have an escalation mechanism, and do they have a reporting mechanism? So that's something which has to be clearly defined, and we as IS auditors, we check whether how well that process has been defined. Yeah. So this again, guys, is very important process from your even exam perspective. Yeah. So guys, these were some of the key concepts I wanted to cover in this video. If you have any question, any doubt, please put in the comment section below, and one of us will respond as soon as possible. So with that, thank you so much, and see you in the next one.